Have you ever stopped to think about how much a single act of kindness can change everything? I'm not talking about small changes, the kind you forget the following week. I'm talking about the kind of decision that rewrites destinies, that puts you at the center of something much bigger than you imagined. Because sometimes, opening a door for a stranger on a cold night isn't just generosity. It's the exact moment when your life ceases to be your own and becomes part of a story you didn't even know was being told. The snow fell heavily that night. The kind of snow that drowns out sounds, that turns the road into an endless white line. She was locking the barn when she saw the two of them. A tall man, shoulders hunched with weight, carrying a sleeping child in his arms. They walked slowly, as if each step cost more than the last. There was no car in sight. There was no luggage besides a dark backpack slung over his shoulder. Just a man, a child, and the biting cold of the early morning. She could have pretended not to see. She could have gone back inside, locked the door, and let the night take care of it on its own. But something about that scene captivated her. Perhaps it was the way he held the girl, with such intense care that it seemed painful. Perhaps it was the absolute silence around them, as if the whole world were waiting to see what she would do. Or perhaps it was simply the fact that, for a long time now, no one has needed her for anything anymore. She didn't think much. He simply opened the barn door. The smell of dry hay and old wood filled the icy air. She took the blankets that were stored in the corner, the ones her father used on winter nights before he died, and spread them over the pile of straw. He said they could stay until dawn. He didn't ask questions. He didn't ask for names. He just offered shelter, because that's what seemed right at that moment. He thanked her silently. Just a nod, a brief glance that met hers for less than 2 seconds. But it was enough time for her to feel something strange. It wasn't ordinary gratitude. It was the look of someone carrying an invisible weight, who knows more than they should, who is running from something, or rushing towards something. There was weariness there, yes, but there was also alertness, as if he were constantly calculating risks, measuring distances, prepared to react. She returned home while the snow continued to fall. She locked the door, lit the fire in the fireplace, and tried to return to her routine. But something had changed. Perhaps you've felt this before. That feeling of having done the right thing, but at the same time, a small, almost imperceptible unease, whispering that perhaps she had just opened a door she shouldn't have. She tried to ignore it. She told herself she was being paranoid, that helping a father and child on a stormy night was perfectly fine. But his gaze remained etched in her memory. The way he checked the barn before entering. The way he positioned his backpack near the door, as if he needed quick access. The way he laid the child down, covering her with extreme care, but without taking off his own shoes. Small details. Details that an ordinary person wouldn't notice. But she did. Because when you live alone long enough, you learn to read silences. And that man was made of silence. What she didn't know, while trying to sleep that night, was that he wasn't sleeping either. That on the other side of the property, inside the dark barn, he was awake, peering through the crack in the door, watching the road. That the backpack beside him contained neither clothes nor food. That the silver badge hidden at the bottom carried a weight she couldn't yet imagine. And that the folded photograph in the inside pocket showed something that would change everything as soon as she discovered it. Because helping a stranger seems simple when you believe you're in control. But what if the stranger already knew who you were before knocking on your door? What if that snowy night wasn't a coincidence, but the first movement of something much bigger, much more dangerous, that was already happening around her without her realizing it? Stay with me until the end, because what comes next will show you that some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. And that's exactly what happened when she went down to the barn the next morning. Morning light filtered through the cracks in the old wood, drawing thin lines on the hard-packed earth floor. She carried a makeshift tray with hot coffee, homemade bread, and blackberry jam she'd made weeks ago and hadn't yet had a reason to open. The girl was awake, sitting on the blankets, looking around with that quiet curiosity children have when they wake up in unfamiliar places. The man stood with his back to the door, packing something into his backpack. She knocked lightly on the door before entering. She said, "Good morning." She extended the tray. The girl smiled shyly, and that warmed something inside her that had been cold for far too long. He thanked her again, in the same low voice as the night before, and it was at that moment that she saw it. The backpack was open. Just for a second, just enough for her to notice the metallic glint of something silvery inside. A badge, polished, official. Her heart skipped a beat. It wasn't fear, not yet. It was confusion. She quickly looked away, pretending to adjust the tray, but her mind was already racing. Why would a police officer be walking down a deserted road with a child in the middle of the night? Why hadn't he asked for help, identified himself, said anything about who he was? And then she saw the papers. They were scattered beside the backpack, as if he were reviewing something before she got in. Photographs, documents, and one of them, the most visible one, showed something that made her gasp for air. It was a photo of the barn, the same barn where they were, taken from a distance, probably from the road. And next to it, another image, a face she knew, a face she had seen in dreams and nightmares since he disappeared 3 months ago, her brother. She stepped back slowly, trying not to make a sound, trying not to let the panic rising in her throat show. She set the tray down on a board beside her and murmured something about having forgotten something in the house. He looked at her. He didn't say anything, but his gaze changed. It became more attentive, more calculated, as if he knew exactly what she had seen, and as if he were deciding, at that very second, what to do about it. She left the barn, her legs trembling. The snow had stopped, but the cold remained biting. The sky was gray, heavy, laden with something that seemed about to fall again. She went inside, locked the door, leaned her back against the wood, and closed her eyes. She tried to breathe. She tried to think. She tried to understand what the hell was happening. Who was that man? Why did he have pictures of her brother? Why? Was he there, on her property? As if he knew exactly where to go. And that's when everything started to make sense. Or rather, to make even less sense, but in a way she could no longer ignore. He hadn't appeared by chance. He hadn't accepted shelter out of gratitude. He knew who she was. And somehow, that was connected to her brother's disappearance. If you're feeling the same tightness in your chest that she felt at that moment, write in the comments what you would do in her place. Because here at Heart of Protection Stories, we understand that these stories touch on something real inside us. And every time you share what you feel, it strengthens this community that we are building together. She heard footsteps outside. Slow, deliberate. He was coming toward the house. The girl wasn't with him. She was alone with a man she didn't know, who carried a badge and photos that made no sense, and who was now walking toward her door as if he had every right to be there. She thought about locking it. She thought about grabbing the old shotgun her father had left in the closet. But before she could move, he knocked 3 knocks, firm, respectful, and then his voice, for the first time clear, came through the door. "I know you saw it, and I need you to listen to me before you judge anything. Please." There was something in that voice. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a plea. It was something in between. Urgency mixed with exhaustion. As if he had rehearsed that moment in his head 1,000 times and still didn't know if he was doing the right thing. She stood there, her hand on the doorknob, her heart pounding, trying to decide whether opening that door would be the bravest or the stupidest decision of her life. And then she opened it. He stood on the threshold, his hands visible, away from his body, as if to show he wasn't a threat. The girl was behind him, holding the hem of her father's coat with her small fingers. He didn't go inside. He just looked at her with the same intensity as the night before, only now there was something more. There was honesty, or at least an attempt at it. "My name is James Collier," he said. "I'm the sheriff of the neighboring county, and I've come here because I believe your life is in danger. She wanted to laugh. She wanted to say it was ridiculous, that she'd lived there for years without problems, that nobody cared enough about her to be a threat. But the words wouldn't come out, because deep down, ever since her brother disappeared, she knew something was wrong. She knew the official answers didn't make sense. She knew people in town avoided talking about it. And now, there was a man with a badge and photos that connected everything in a way she didn't want to face. "Come in," she said, her voice firmer than she expected. "But leave the door open." He entered slowly, the girl still clinging to him. He sat in the chair near the window, from where he could see the road. She stood, leaning against the table, her arms crossed, waiting for him to explain why he had invaded her life disguised as a victim. Why he had used her kindness as a gateway to something she hadn't asked to be a part of. This is where the story begins to show what is really at stake. James began to speak. He said that her brother hadn't disappeared of his own accord. He said that he was involved in a smuggling investigation, that he had become an informant, that he had handed over evidence that put powerful people at risk. He said that 3 months ago, right after passing on crucial information, he vanished. Without a trace, no body, nothing to indicate whether he was alive or dead. She listened to everything in silence, her breathing becoming more difficult with each word. Her brother had never said anything, never given any sign. He appeared occasionally, always in a hurry, always saying he was busy with work. She thought he was just avoiding the property, avoiding the memories of their father, avoiding the responsibility she carried alone. But no, he was trying to protect her. He was keeping his distance so that she wouldn't become part of it. And now she was. "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Why did you come to my house, pretending to need help?" James looked away for a second. It was the first time he seemed insecure. "Because they're watching you. Because they believe you know where he is, or that he'll try to contact you. I needed to get there before them. I needed to see if you really didn't know anything, or if you were involved." Rage surged like wildfire. "Involved? You think I'd hide my own brother and pretend I know nothing?" "I don't think so," he replied, his voice low but firm. "I know you don't know anything. I realized that last night, when you offered help without hesitation, without asking anything. When you brought food for my daughter as if she were your responsibility. You're not pretending. You really don't know." He paused. "But they don't believe it. And that's why you're in danger." She had lived alone since her father died, keeping the property running only out of stubbornness. Loneliness had never bothered her as much as now, when she realized that all this time she hadn't truly been alone. She was being watched, measured, judged by people she didn't even know. The feeling of uselessness she had carried for years, that certainty that she didn't matter to anyone, crumbled cruelly. She did matter, but not in the way she wanted. She mattered as bait, as a piece in a game she didn't even know she was playing. Seeing that child shivering with cold the night before had awakened a maternal feeling she had kept hidden for years. Helping had been the only way she knew how to still feel like she mattered. To feel like she was good for something beyond keeping fences standing and feeding animals that didn't care about her. But now she understood that helping also came at a price. That opening doors meant letting in not only people, but consequences. Transformations she couldn't control. James continued talking, explaining details about the investigation, about how her property was on a strategic route, about how they found traces of suspicious movement on the surrounding roads. But she barely listened. She was thinking about her brother, the last times she saw him, the way he looked back before leaving, as if he were checking if anyone was following him. She had thought it was paranoia, that he was stressed, but no, he was running away. He was trying to survive. And she, without knowing it, had continued living as if nothing was happening. The girl shifted in her father's lap, looking at him with big, curious eyes. "Do you have horses?" she asked, her voice thin and timid. She blinked, returning to the present. "I have 2. Can I see?" James placed his hand on his daughter's shoulder. "So, "Dear." Now the adults are talking. But something in that simple request, in that innocence that didn't understand the danger around her, made something inside her change. It made her realize she had a choice. You could send them away. I could pretend that conversation never happened. He could return to the safe solitude he knew. Or I could decide that caring, even if it was as bait, was still better than not caring at all. Comment below, this makes sense to me. She stared at the girl, trying to process everything James had said, trying to decide whether to believe him, or if it was just another layer of a well-constructed lie. Because the truth was, she had no way of knowing. She couldn't be sure if he was really who he said he was, or if the badge was just another tool to gain trust. But there was something in the way he held his daughter, something in the genuine exhaustion in his eyes, that made sense in a twisted and painful way. "If they're watching me," she said slowly, "why did you bring your daughter? Why would you put her at risk?" James looked at the girl, then back at her because I had no choice. Her mother died 2 years ago. I have no family. And leaving her with strangers, even if they were trustworthy people, would put her at greater risk. They know who I am. They know I have a daughter. If I left her anywhere, she would become a target. He paused. At least with me, I can protect her. There was something devastating about that logic. The idea that the only safety he could offer his own daughter was to keep her close to him, even in the midst of a dangerous investigation. And she understood, at that moment, that he wasn't lying. Not about that. Because nobody would invent a story like that. Nobody would bring a child into the center of something dangerous, unless all other options were worse. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice softer now. Less anger, more weariness. "Time," he replied. "I need time to understand what's happening here. I need to find out if your brother left any clues, anything that might indicate where he is, or what he discovered. And I need to do this before they realize I'm here. What if they already understand?" James didn't answer immediately. He just looked out the window at the empty road, at the snow that was starting to fall again. "So we have even less time than I thought." From that moment on, everything begins to change silently. She let James and his daughter stay. Not because I completely trusted him, but because the alternative was to send them away and continue pretending nothing was happening. And she was tired of pretending. Tired of living on a property too big for one person, taking care of things that didn't fill the void her father and brother had left. If there was danger, at least now she knew. And if there was a chance, however small, of finding out what had happened to her brother, she would seize it. They spent the rest of the day in tense silence. James searched the house, looking for anything his brother might have left behind. She helped, opening drawers, rummaging through old boxes, trying to remember if he had mentioned anything that seemed strange at the time. But there was nothing, or at least nothing obvious. The girl played in the corner of the room, drawing on old papers she had found, oblivious to the tension that filled every corner of the house. It was late afternoon, as the light began to fade, that she saw the car. A dark sedan, stopped on the road, far enough away not to be immediately threatening, but close enough to be impossible to ignore. She called to James. He came to the window, looked, and his jaw tightened. "Do you recognize the car?" he asked. "No, I've never seen it before." He stood watching for a few minutes. The car didn't move. Nobody got out. It just stayed there, still, as if waiting for something, or keeping watch. James moved away from the window, picked up his backpack, took out a small radio and said something she didn't fully understand. Codes. Words that only made sense to the person on the other end. "What are you doing?" she asked, asking for support. "It will take them a few hours to arrive, but at least they'll be on their way. And until then, we'll stay here. Lock the doors, don't turn on unnecessary lights, and waiting, as if it were simple. As if time didn't drag each second into a suffocating eternity. She locked all the doors, checked the windows, closed the curtains. James strategically positioned chairs, creating makeshift barriers. The girl, sensed the change in the air and became quieter, clinging more to her father. And there, in that house that had been a refuge, a sanctuary, a place of safe solitude, it was now something else. It was a trap, or a fortress. It depended on how you looked at it. Night fell heavily. The car was still there. They ate in silence, something quick, tasteless. James put his daughter to sleep on the sofa, covering her with the same blankets she had offered in the barn the night before. And then he went back to the window. He stood there, watching. She approached, stood beside him. She said nothing. She just stayed. Because somehow, in that shared silence, there was something that words couldn't express. There was fear, but there was also a strange feeling of no longer being alone. That, for the first time in years, someone was there not because they needed something from her, but because they chose to stay. Even if it was out of obligation, duty, investigation, it was still a choice. And that meant something. "Do you think my brother is still alive?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. James hesitated before answering. "I think if he were dead, they wouldn't be here. They're looking for something. And dead people don't hide things." He looked at her. "So yes, I think he's alive. And I think he's waiting for the right moment to appear." That fragile hope hung in the air between them. She wanted to believe. She wanted to hold on to that possibility as if it were something solid. Something that could stop the ground from crumbling beneath her feet. But James offered no more than that. He made no promises. He didn't say everything would be all right. And somehow, that brutal honesty was more comforting than any gentle lie could be. What seems simple begins to reveal layers that no one expected. Because the truth is, James knew much more than he had let on. He knew who she was even before she accepted shelter that snowy night. Her last name was on the list he'd been carrying for weeks, circled in red, marked as a person of interest. Not as a suspect, but as a potential victim, or an unwitting witness. Someone who might have information without knowing it. Someone who could be used as leverage if her brother decided to reappear. Spending the night in the barn hadn't been accidental. It had been strategy. A way to get close without raising suspicion, to assess the situation from the inside, to understand if she was involved or just another piece being moved. On a chessboard she couldn't see, he had planned everything. The approach, the timing. Even his daughter served as a shield, as a way to appear harmless, vulnerable, trustworthy. But then something had changed. When she brought food to his daughter that morning, without questions, without judgment, just with the genuine care of someone who understood what it was like to need help, something inside him broke. He realized she knew nothing. She wasn't pretending. She wasn't hiding information. She truly lived there, alone, oblivious to the danger that circled the property like vultures, waiting for the right moment. And that put her in far greater danger than he had imagined. Because innocent people had no defenses. They didn't know when to lie, when to be suspicious, when to run. They opened doors for strangers in the snow. They offered blankets, they made coffee, and they died without understanding why. He couldn't let that happen. Not to her. Not after seeing the way she looked at his daughter, with that tenderness that only someone who had lost so much could offer. Not after realizing that she was living in the same loneliness he knew all too well. The kind that makes you forget what it's like to have someone who cares whether you wake up the next day or not. So he had made a decision. He was going to protect her. Even if it meant exposing his investigation. Even if it delayed everything. Even if it put his own daughter at slightly greater risk. Because there were lines he couldn't cross, and letting an innocent woman die to close a case was one of them. "What are you thinking about?" she asked, pulling him from his thoughts. James blinked, returning to the present. "How are we going to get out of this? And will it happen?" He looked at her, really looked. He saw the wariness, the fear, but also something stronger, determination. The same stubbornness that made her keep that property running on its own. That made her wake up every day, even when there was no reason, that made her offer help to strangers, even when the world had only taken things from her. "Go," he said. "We will." She didn't seem entirely convinced, but she nodded. She went back to the kitchen, made more coffee, as if keeping her hands busy could stop her mind from panicking. James remained at the window. The car was still there, motionless, patient. It was this patience that worried him. Desperate criminals acted quickly, made mistakes. But those who waited, who observed, who planned every move, those were the dangerous ones. Those didn't make mistakes. He checked the radio again. The support team was 2 hours away. 2 hours that felt like an eternity when you knew that at any moment something could happen. He looked at his daughter sleeping on the sofa, so small, so vulnerable. He had sworn to his wife, in her final days, that he would protect the girl above all else. And here he was, using her as part of an operation, putting her in danger because there was no better choice. The guilt was heavy, but the alternative was worse. Because if he didn't resolve this, if he didn't find the answers, the same criminals who had made her brother disappear would eventually come after his daughter. They didn't leave loose ends, and he was the biggest loose end of all. She returned with 2 mugs of coffee. She handed one to him. Their fingers touched for a second, and he felt the tremor in her hands. It wasn't from cold. It was from contained fear, from adrenaline, from everything she was holding back to avoid collapsing. And he understood, in that brief touch, that she was stronger than she seemed, that there was steel beneath that gentleness, and that, if they survived this, she would never again be the same person who had offered shelter without a second thought. "Thank you," he said. "Not for the coffee, for everything. For trusting me when I shouldn't have. For staying when I could have run away. For not turning it into an accusation, a fight, a bigger disaster than it already was." She simply nodded, as if she understood what he was really saying. And perhaps she did. Because there were things that didn't need words. Transformations that happened in silence, in decisions made without thinking, in gestures that revealed more than any speech. The car on the road turned on its headlights. James tensed immediately, his hand instinctively going to the gun on his waist. But the car didn't move toward the house. It just stayed there, headlights on. Like a warning, like a message. They knew he was there. They knew she wasn't alone anymore. And they were making it clear that at any moment, whenever they wanted, they could act. He comments, "I saw that truth too." The headlights remained on for a few more minutes, illuminating the snow that fell in slow, almost hypnotic flakes. Then, without warning, they went out. The car remained there, now just a dark shadow against the white landscape. But the message had been delivered. They knew, and they wanted James to know that they knew. "They're not coming in," James said, more to himself than to her. "Not yet. Not until they're sure what I'm doing here." "And when are you sure?" He didn't answer. He just took a sip of his coffee, his eyes fixed on the road. She realized he didn't have a comforting answer. He had no guarantees, only strategies that might or might not work. And for the first time since all this began, she understood that he was improvising as much as she was. That the badge didn't make him invincible. It just made him a bigger target. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject. Because the truth is that the consequence of her act of kindness hadn't started with that car on the road. It had started much earlier, that same day, when she still thought everything would be alright. When she still believed that offering shelter was just that, a human gesture without greater weight. She was in the stable, feeding the horses, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy, when she saw the man arriving. He had come on foot along the back road, dressed in clothes that seemed too formal for the countryside. A heavy coat and boots that had never seen real mud. He said he was from the county, doing a routine check on rural properties, something related to taxes or records. She hadn't paid much attention to the details, because she was too busy trying to understand why he was really there. Because the way he looked at the barn wasn't casual. It was deliberate. It was a thorough, calculated sweep. as if he were cataloging every detail. And when he asked if she was alone, his tone wasn't one of concern. It was one of confirmation, as if he already knew the answer and was just testing whether she would lie. She said yes, that she'd lived alone since her father died. You didn't mention James. You didn't mention the child. Something about that man made every instinct in her scream not to reveal anything. He nodded, jotted something down in a ridiculous little notebook that nobody else used anymore, and left without looking back. But her blood was already cold. Her hands trembled as she finished feeding the horses, and it was only when he returned to the house that he saw. On the back door, scrawled with something that looked like charcoal or chalk, was a message. The letters were jagged, hurried, but perfectly legible. You shouldn't have let strangers in. She stood there, staring at those words, feeling the world tilt in a way she couldn't correct. Someone was watching. Someone had seen James and his daughter enter the barn, and now she was part of something she didn't understand, something with real, tangible consequences written on her own front door. That's when James appeared behind her. He saw the message, his jaw tightened, and for the first time she noticed something resembling fear in his eyes. Not fear for himself, fear for her. Because that changed everything. It meant they weren't just watching. They were sending warnings. They were escalating. "This is my fault," she whispered, still staring at the words. "I brought you inside. I offered help. And now they think I know something." "No," James said, his voice firm. "This isn't your fault. You did what any decent person would do. The problem isn't that you helped. The problem is that there are people out there who turn kindness into vulnerability." He erased the note with his coat sleeve, as if making the words disappear could undo what they represented. "And I'm not going to let you pay for doing the right thing." But the impact had already been made. She already understood that decisions had consequences. That helping a stranger was no longer an innocent gesture in a world where people disappeared and investigations took place in the shadows. That her journey from safe solitude to exposed danger had taken only one night, an offer of shelter, a kindness that now seemed naive. They went back inside. James locked the back door and shoved a heavy chest of drawers against it. He checked all the other entrances again. The girl was still sleeping, oblivious to the tension that was growing like a dense fog, and she stood there, in the middle of the room, feeling the weight of it all. Feeling that she had crossed an invisible line, and now there was no turning back. "They're coming for something," James said, breaking the silence. "They don't know what you know, but they're going to try to find out. They're going to pressure you, they're going to threaten you. And if they don't get answers, they're going to try to use you as bait to lure your brother. What if he doesn't come? Then they're going to eliminate you as a witness, as a loose end." His honesty was brutal, but necessary. There was no room for illusions. Not when the hidden truth was finally coming to light, revealing the inner workings of something much bigger than she had imagined. She sat in the chair near the fireplace, her legs trembling. Not from fear, from anger. Anger that her brother had gotten himself into something like this and hadn't warned her. Anger that the world was so rotten that offering help could get you killed. Anger that she had lived for years in a solitude that seemed like safety, but was just ignorance. "I want to help," she said suddenly, looking at James. "I want to find my brother. I want to end this. Tell me what I need to do." James studied her for a long moment. There was something in his gaze that she couldn't quite decipher. Respect, perhaps, or concern. "Are you sure? Because if you really get into this, there's no going back. You'll have to trust me completely. You'll have to do things that scare you. And in the end, we might not be able to save anyone. I'm sure of it," she replied without hesitation. Because the transformation had already happened. She was no longer the woman who lived alone, waiting for life to have some purpose. Now, she had one. Dangerous, terrifying, but real. James waited until she was truly ready to listen. Not the superficial version of the truth he had given before, but the full revelation. The deeper layer he had kept hidden because he knew it would change everything. He pulled up a chair, sat down in front of her, and for the first time since he arrived, lifted the weight from his shoulders and let the exhaustion show on his face. "I need you to listen to everything," he said. "And I need you to understand that what I'm about to tell you isn't speculation. It's months of investigation. It's blood, sweat, and people who died trying to expose this." She nodded, holding her breath, waiting. This is where the story begins to show what is really at stake. "My name is James Collier. I'm the sheriff of Millbrook County, 3 hours from here. 8 months ago, we started investigating a smuggling ring that operates throughout the region. It's not drugs, it's not weapons, it's worse. It's trafficking in government information, forged documents, stolen identities, things that allow dangerous people to disappear and reappear as clean citizens anywhere in the country." He paused, measuring his words. "They use isolated rural properties as transit points, places where nobody asks questions, where the movement is rare enough not to attract attention, but constant enough to work." She felt her stomach sink. "And my property is one of those places." It was, or at least they thought it was. Her brother discovered this 6 months ago. He worked in freight transport, making deliveries all over the region, and he started noticing patterns. Trucks that always appeared in the same places, always at dawn, always with the same people watching. He started taking notes, photographing, gathering evidence. James looked directly into her eyes, and then he contacted me. Her world stopped. My brother was an informant. Yes, and one of the best I've ever worked with. He didn't do it for the money. He did it because he realized these people were using his family's property, the place where your father had built a life, as a tool for crimes that ruined other lives. James took a deep breath. He gave me enough evidence to identify 3 of the main operators. Powerful people, people with political, judicial, and financial connections. And 2 weeks after handing over that evidence, he disappeared. She felt tears burning, but she didn't let them fall. "And you believe he's still alive?" "I believe so. Because if they had killed him, they would have left the body exposed as a warning. But they didn't. Which means that either he's in hiding, or he's being kept somewhere. And in either case, there's a reason." James leaned forward. "They think he has more evidence. They think he kept something like life insurance. And they're looking for that evidence. And they think I know where they are," she added, her voice coming out weaker than she intended. "Exactly. You're his sister. The only family he has left. If he hid something, it makes sense that he hid it here, or that he told you." James paused. "But I know he didn't tell you. Because your brother told me he was going to keep you out of it at all costs. That you'd already lost your father and didn't deserve to carry any more weight. He protected you. And in doing so unintentionally, he put you in the line of fire." The anger returned, mixed with pain. "So he left me here, alone, unaware of anything, while criminals watched over me. He thought he was protecting you. He thought that if you didn't know anything, you wouldn't be a target." James shook his head. He didn't foresee that they would come after you anyway, that they would use you as bait. She stood up, began pacing the room, trying to process everything, trying to piece together a life that seemed completely different now. The brother she thought had abandoned her was actually fighting for her. The loneliness she felt was a result of protection, not neglect. And the property she stubbornly kept, running, was unbeknownst to her, a battlefield. "You said the barn wasn't a refuge by chance," she reminded him, stopping abruptly. "You said it was bait." James hesitated. This was the part that was going to hurt the most. "When I learned you were still here, alone, and that they were starting to make a move, I needed to get there before them. But I couldn't just show up as sheriff. That would scare you, alert whoever was watching, and ruin any chance of finding the evidence your brother hid." He stood up as well. "So I created a situation where you would naturally offer help, where I could enter the property without raising red flags. The barn was the perfect entry point, away from the house, visible from the road, a place where a desperate traveler could seek shelter." She felt the impact of those words like a punch. You manipulated my kindness. Yes, he admitted without looking away. And I'm not going to lie and say I didn't know what I was doing. I knew exactly what I was doing. I used the fact that you lived alone. I used your empathy. I used everything I had discovered about you to create a situation where you would make the decision I needed you to make. He took a step toward her. But that was before I really knew you. Before I saw how you took care of my daughter. Before I understood that you're not just a pawn in this game. You're someone who deserves protection as much as justice. And does that change anything? She asked, her voice thick with bitterness. You still used me. You still lied. You still turned my house into a field of operations without even asking. Everything changes, James replied. Because now I'm not just here to close a case. I'm here because I'm not going to let you die because of the decisions your brother and I made. He took a deep breath. You want the truth. The truth is, I came here expecting to find someone who could be an accomplice or a victim. But I found someone who is simply human. Someone who did what was right even without knowing the cost. And that changed my journey as much as it changed yours. He comments, this story could be real. She remained silent, processing everything. The anger was still there, pulsing beneath the surface. But there was something else now. Understanding, perhaps, or at least an attempt at it. Because deep down, if she were in his place, if she were trying to save someone, to protect innocent people, would she have done differently? Could she really judge him for using the tools he had to do what he thought was right? I don't know if I can trust you, she finally said. But I also don't know if I have a choice. You always have a choice, James replied. You can send me away right now. You can lock the doors, pack your things, and get off this property before things get worse. I won't stop you, I'll even help. He paused. But if you do that, you'll never know what happened to your brother. And they'll keep looking for you, because they don't believe you know nothing. She knew he was right. Running away wouldn't solve anything. It would only postpone the inevitable. And living the rest of her life looking over her shoulder, without answers, without justice, without even trying, that was worse than the danger. It was giving up, and she had already given up on too many things in her life. Then tell me what you need me to do, she said, her voice firmer. James nodded, a hint of respect crossing his face. But before he could respond, the little girl stirred on the sofa, a low moan escaping as she woke. He went to her immediately, kneeling beside her, gently brushing the hair away from her small face with a delicacy that contrasted sharply with the tension of the moment. The child opened her eyes, confused, still half asleep. Daddy, she murmured, I'm here, darling. You can go back to sleep. But the girl looked around, realizing where she was, and then saw her standing near the fireplace. A shy smile appeared. You're the horse lady. She felt a tightening in her chest. Yes. Do you want to see them tomorrow morning? The girl nodded excitedly, but James laid her down again, covering her carefully. Tomorrow, I promise. Now sleep. He waited until her breathing calmed, until she fell back into a deep sleep, before getting up and returning to her side. From that moment on, everything begins to change silently. Because it was there, in that instant, seeing James with his daughter, that she understood the true weight of the conflict he carried. It wasn't just about closing a case. It wasn't just about justice or duty. It was about a man who had a child to protect, who had lost his wife and was now all that girl had in the world. And yet he was there, putting himself in danger, putting his daughter in danger, because there were other people who also needed to be saved. James had to choose. She saw it in his eyes now, in that hesitation that hadn't been there before. He could use her property as a trap. He could let the criminals come, set up an operation, lure them all in at once, and close the case definitively. This would put her in direct danger, turn the house into a battlefield. But it would give him the best chance of finding her brother alive. Or he could make the other choice. He could get her out of there, ensure her safety, hide her until it was all over. but that would mean losing the only opportunity to use that place as bait. It would mean the criminals would disappear. Her brother would remain missing, and everything would have been in vain. Every passing minute was a decision postponed, and she saw the weight of it on his shoulders, in the way he looked at his daughter, and then at her, as if he were calculating which life was worth more. He had sworn to protect innocent people when he accepted the badge, but he had also sworn to find the truth, no matter the cost. And now those two promises were at war, and he was caught in the middle, bleeding inside. "You're thinking of getting me out of here," she said. It wasn't a question, it was a statement. James didn't deny it. "I'm considering all the options, and none of them are good. Because if you take me out, you lose the chance to catch them. Try. And if I stay, I might die." Yes, his honesty was brutal, but she preferred it that way. She preferred the raw truth to empty promises. She approached, looked out the window at the car that continued down the road. "What if I say I want to stay? That I want to help attract them? So I'll tell you that you don't understand the risk, that this isn't a movie, it's not a game. People die. And I've seen innocent women die in operations that seemed safe." He looked at her with an intensity that made the air heavy. "I don't want you to be another one, but you need me to be here, don't you?" She held his gaze. "Because without me here, this doesn't work. They only come if they believe they can use me. If I disappear, they disappear too." James closed his eyes, his jaw clenched, and it was in that silence that she understood. He had already made the decision, or at least tried. Looking at her, caring for his daughter earlier, seeing the genuine affection, the pure humanity without ulterior motives, something inside him had broken. He realized he couldn't sacrifice her, even if it meant letting criminals escape, even if it meant failing the mission, even if it cost him his career, the investigation, everything. Because there were lines he couldn't cross, and using an innocent woman as bait, knowing he would probably kill her, was one of them. He had come there prepared to make difficult choices, but he wasn't prepared to truly know her, to see that she wasn't just a name in a report. She was a real person, someone who deserved more than being a disposable piece on a chessboard he controlled. "I'm going to get you out of here," he said finally, his voice low but determined. "Tomorrow morning, as soon as it's light, I'll put you in the car, take you to a safe place, and you'll stay there until this is over. And my brother, I'll find another way. There's always another way." But they both knew he was lying. There was no other way. This was the only chance. And he was letting her slip away because he couldn't bear another death on his conscience. "No," she said, the word coming out more firmly than she had expected. "I'm not leaving." James turned to her, surprised. "Didn't you understand what I said? This is a non-negotiable. I'm not going to let you die because of this, and I'm not going to let my brother die because you decided to protect me." She crossed her arms, planting her feet on the ground, as if she were putting down roots. "You said I always have a choice, so this is mine. I'm staying. You don't know what you're asking for. I know exactly what I'm asking for. I'm asking to have a say over my own life, to decide whether I want to take the risk or not. And I do." She took a deep breath. "My brother disappeared trying to do the right thing. You're here risking your daughter because you believe it's worth it. So don't tell me I can't make the same choice just because I'm a woman, or because you feel guilty." James remained silent, the conflict visible on his face. He wanted to argue. He wanted to use the authority his badge gave him to simply force her to leave. But he couldn't, because she was right. It wasn't his decision. It never had been. "If you stay," he said slowly, "you'll have to trust me completely. You'll have to do everything I say when I say it, without question. Because hesitation kills. Doubt kills. And I can't protect you if you don't follow the rules." "I'll go on," she promised. And for the first time since it all began, she saw something resembling relief in his eyes. Not because he wanted her to stay, but because, at least now, he didn't have to choose between two impossible losses. What seemed simple begins to reveal layers that no one expected, because the bond between them hadn't been born of trust. It had been born of necessity, of pressure, of circumstances that forced them to occupy the same space at a time when vulnerability meant death. She didn't trust him, not completely. Not after learning that he had manipulated her kindness to get what he needed. But she trusted his daughter, and that was different. That was something he couldn't pretend to do. The child spoke of her father with an admiration that couldn't be contained in such small words. She told stories of how he always showed up when he promised, how he never broke his word, how even when he was too tired to move, he still found the energy to read a story before bed. And that's what made her stay. Not the badge that proved he was an authority figure. Not the pretty words about justice and protection. It was seeing how he tucked his daughter in at night, adjusting the blankets with a care so genuine, it hurt. It was seeing how he checked the windows before allowing himself to relax. How he never completely let his guard down, even when he seemed to be resting. He was a man who protected, not because he was paid to do so, not because he had sworn on a Bible sometime in the distant past, but because it was in his blood, in the way he breathed, in the way he constantly looked around, cataloging threats, even before consciously processing what he saw. And she, for the first time in years, allowed herself to feel that she also deserved to be protected. That needing someone wasn't a weakness. That accepting help didn't mean giving up on herself. They spent the rest of the night preparing. James taught her basic signals, forms of silent communication in case they needed to coordinate without speaking. He showed her where the emergency exits he had mapped were, the places where she could hide if things got bad. And she absorbed it all with a concentration that surprised them both, as if she had finally found a purpose that made sense, that filled the void in a way that tending horses and maintaining fences never had. The little girl slept soundly on the sofa, oblivious to the transformation happening around her. And there was something comforting about that preserved innocence, something that reminded them both of what they were fighting to protect. It wasn't just about closing cases or finding missing people. It was about ensuring that children could continue sleeping peacefully, trusting that the adults around them would do whatever was necessary to keep them safe. "Thank you," James said suddenly, breaking the concentrated silence. "For staying, for trusting me enough not to run away. I know I don't deserve this after lying." She looked at him, really looked. She saw the exhaustion that went beyond the physical. She saw the weight of decisions that no one should have to make alone. And for the first time since discovering the truth, she didn't feel anger. She felt something more complex. Something with layers of understanding, empathy, and a strange connection born from being two people trying to do their best in an impossible situation. "You're not doing this alone," she said. "Not because I blindly trust you, but because we're in the same situation now. And if there's one thing I've learned living alone all these years, it's that surviving is easier when you don't have to carry everything on your shoulders." James nodded, something indescribable passing across his face. Gratitude, perhaps. Or recognition that she understood things he didn't even know he needed someone to understand. And it was there, in that silent moment between safety instructions and perimeter checks, that the bond changed in nature. It ceased to be merely circumstantial. It became something with deeper roots. Trust built, not on promises, but on actions. On choices made when it would have been easier to give up. He returned to the window, resuming his vigil. She stayed close to him, not because she needed to, but because she wanted to. Because there was something comforting in sharing that space, that tension, that fear. And when their fingers accidentally touched on the windowsill, neither of them pulled away. It was a brief touch, insignificant to anyone on the outside. But for them, at that moment, it was recognition. It was saying without words that they were no longer alone in the darkness. She comments, "I saw that truth too." The early morning hours brought a deceptive calm. The car on the road had left sometime during the night. leaving only tire tracks in the snow as proof that it had been there. James didn't relax. He knew that the absence of a visible threat didn't mean the absence of danger. It only meant they had changed tactics. They were waiting, observing from another angle. And that was worse than direct confrontation, because you couldn't defend yourself against what you couldn't see. He started working as soon as dawn broke. He installed small cameras in strategic corners of the property, hidden in places where only someone who knew how to look would find them. He reinforced the door and window locks with improvised latches he assembled using tools from the barn. He contacted the team via encrypted radio, confirming coordinates and requesting backup. They would arrive in 48 hours, 2 days. 48 hours that seemed like an eternity when you knew that every minute could be the last of normalcy. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because those 2 days that followed were strange in a way that none of them had anticipated. The property fell into a guarded silence, a kind of stillness that carried weight, that constantly reminded you that you were being watched even when you saw no one. But within that tension, something unexpected happened. They began to live, not survive, not merely exist in constant defensive mode, but truly live, even if only for 48 hours, even if it was a fragile illusion that could shatter at any second. She returned to her routine. She fed the horses, repaired a crumbling fence, swept the snow from the driveway. Automatic gestures she had performed thousands of times, but which now carried a different weight, because James was there. He helped with the heavy work without her asking, carrying bags of feed, lifting planks she couldn't manage alone, creating a silent synchronicity where they both knew exactly what needed to be done without having to argue. His daughter was playing in the field, running among the snowdrifts, laughing in that pure way that only children can when they are completely present in the moment. She watched her from the balcony, a mug of coffee in her hands, and felt something tighten in her chest. It wasn't sadness. It was longing for something she had never had. The possibility of a family, of voices that filled the silence, of a purpose that went beyond keeping structures standing. It almost seemed normal. It almost seemed like they were just 3 people living on a rural property, facing the winter together, building something that could have a future. But then night would fall, and she would wake up in the early hours, unable to sleep completely, and see the light on in the barn. James was still there, watching, planning, prepared to react to any suspicious movement. And she knew, with a painful certainty, that this was just a pause. The danger hadn't gone away. It was just waiting for the right moment. And when it came, it would come without warning. On the second day, while they were working together in the stable, the little girl came running in, her cheeks flushed with cold and excitement. "Daddy, look what I found." She was holding something small and shiny in her hand. James bent down, picked up the object, and his face changed instantly. It was a key. Small, old, with rust marks and signs of wear. He looked at it, then back at his daughter. "Where did you find this, darling?" "Near the trees." It was hidden, under a rock with a strange design. James stood up immediately, urgency guiding his every movement. "Show me where." They followed the girl to a small grove at the back of the property. There was a large stone there, with a crude symbol carved into its surface. She recognized that symbol. Her father used to draw it when she was a child, saying it was a family mark, something his grandfather had created. And her brother knew this. Of course he knew. "He hid something here," she whispered, her heart racing. "My brother. He knew I would recognize this symbol." James began searching around, moving smaller stones, checking the ground, and then he found it. A small metal box buried shallow, protected by a plastic bag. He carefully unearthed it, cleared away the snow and dirt, and used the key the girl had found. The lid opened with a dull click. Inside were documents, photographs, flash drives, and a letter. Handwritten, in the handwriting she knew so well. She picked up the letter with trembling fingers, and James didn't try to stop her. This was hers. These were her brother's words to her. She had the right to read them first. If you're reading this, it means I couldn't get back in time. It means they found me, or I needed to disappear to protect you. I know you must be angry. You must think I abandoned you. But everything I did was to keep you out of this, so you could continue living without carrying the weight I chose to carry. The evidence is here. Everything they need. To end this, give it to someone you trust. And please forgive me for not being brave enough to tell the truth when there was still time. She felt tears burning, but she didn't let them fall. Not yet. There was more in the letter. Instructions, names, locations. Her brother had documented everything. He had created a complete map of the criminal operation, with dates, times, people involved. It was pure gold for the investigation. It was exactly what James needed to close the case. And it was there, in her hands, because her brother trusted her to find it. James picked up the documents and began to quickly review them. His face tensed with concentration. This changes everything. With this evidence, we can not only arrest the local operators, but dismantle the entire network. Your brother has achieved the impossible. He looked at her. He gave you the key to ending this. But before she could feel relief, before she could fully process what that meant, James suddenly raised his head, his eyes fixed on something behind her. She turned, following his gaze, and felt her blood run cold. There were footprints in the snow, fresh ones, coming from the opposite direction from where they had gotten there. Someone had been watching. Someone had seen them find the box. Go home, James said, his voice low but with an urgency that sufficed. Now, take her. He indicated his daughter with a nod. Lock everything up. Don't open it for anyone but me. She took the girl's hand, who sensed the change in the air and fell silent, her eyes wide. They ran back to the house, the snow making every step difficult. She locked the door, pushed the dresser against it as James had taught her, and went straight to the window. She saw him moving among the trees, checking the perimeter, his weapon already in hand. And then she saw what he had seen. It wasn't just one person. There were three. Dark figures moving purposefully, surrounding the property like predators that had finally decided to attack. The radio James had left on the table crackled. She picked it up, her hands trembling. The voice that came out wasn't James's. It was a man she'd never heard before. We thought you'd like to know. Your brother is alive. For now. And if you want to keep him that way, you're going to do exactly what we tell you. This is where the story begins to show what is really at stake. She pressed the button to answer, her voice coming out firmer than she felt. Where is he? In a safe place, far from where any police operation could find him. But we can change that. We can return him. If you hand over what you just found, how do you know I found something? The man laughed, a cold sound that sent shivers down her spine. We know everything that happens on this property, every move, every visitor, including the sheriff you so generously decided to shelter. There was a pause. You have two choices. Hand over the evidence and your brother lives, or keep it and watch him die. You have 1 hour to decide. The radio died. She stood there, clutching the device, trying to breathe. The girl was behind her, hidden behind the sofa as James had instructed. And outside, she could see James still moving, still trying to assess the threat, still believing he could control the situation. But he couldn't. Nobody could. Because they had the ultimate trump card. They had her brother, and they were willing to use him. She looked at the metal box on the table, at the documents that could destroy an entire organization, and she understood that the choice wasn't hers. It never had been. From the moment she offered shelter that snowy night, from the moment she decided to stay when she could have run, she had been walking toward this moment, where she would have to choose between justice and family, between doing what was right and saving those she loved. James entered through the back door, quickly locking it behind him. His face was tense, sweaty despite the cold. There, waiting. They're not going to attack yet. They want to negotiate, I know. They said it on the radio. She told him about the message, about the impossible choice she had an hour to make, and she saw the conflict on his face. Because he knew what the evidence meant. He knew how many lives could be saved if they could use that information. But he also knew what it meant to her. He knew he was asking her to sacrifice her brother for a greater good that she had no obligation to serve. "You can't hand over the evidence," he finally said. "Your brother wouldn't want that. He risked everything to gather this information. He disappeared to protect you, yes, but also to ensure it reached the right hands. And what good will it do if he dies in the process?" Her voice came out louder than she intended. "He's my brother, James. The only family I have left. I can't just let him die. And you think you're going to save him by handing over what they want?" James moved closer, forcing her to look him in the eye. "They're going to kill him anyway. Once they have the evidence, there's no reason to keep him alive. He becomes a witness. He becomes a risk. And they eliminate risks." She knew he was right. In the rational part of her mind, she knew that handing over the evidence guaranteed nothing. But the emotional part, the part that had spent 3 months not knowing if her brother was alive or dead, that part screamed that she had to try. That any chance, however small, was better than the certainty of death. "So what do I do?" she asked, and the vulnerability in her own voice surprised her. "Tell me what I do, because I don't know anymore." James held her shoulders firmly, but gently. "We'll use the evidence. We'll find out where he is, and we'll go get him." He paused. "But for that, you'll have to trust me, completely. And you'll have to do something very difficult." "What?" "Pretending you're willing to betray him. Pretending you'll hand over the evidence. Making them believe you chose to save your own skin instead of protecting your brother." He let the words sink in. "Making your own family believe you're capable of betrayal." The pain was physical. The thought that her brother, wherever he was, might think she had sold him out, that she had chosen security over loyalty, was almost unbearable. But she looked at James, at the determination in his eyes, at the silent promise that he wouldn't leave her to do this alone, and she made the decision. She saved a stranger on a snowy night without knowing who he was. And it was this same man who discovered the truth she both feared and hoped for. Her brother was still alive, trapped in a place where only those with blind faith could enter. And now, to rescue him, she would have to do the unthinkable. She would have to feign the deepest betrayal, tarnishing her own name, destroying any image her brother still had of her, all to keep him alive long enough to save him. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision settle on her shoulders like wet snow. James still held her shoulders, and there was something comforting in that firm touch. In that solid presence that said without words that she wasn't alone. The little girl remained hidden behind the sofa, too quiet for a child, and that broke something inside her. Because that child also deserved a world where protection wasn't the exception, where kindness didn't demand such a high price. "I'll do it," she said, her voice firm now. "I'll pretend I'm willing to give everything up. I'll make them believe I chose to save myself." She looked James in the eyes. "But you promise we'll come get him? Promise I won't betray my real brother?" "I promise," James replied without hesitation. "We'll bring him back, alive." And in that moment, with danger surrounding the property, with an hour on the clock, and an impossible choice in her hands, she understood that the journey that began with a simple act of kindness had transformed into something much bigger. It had become a question of who she was willing to be when everything was at stake, and she chose to be someone who fought, even when it hurt, even when the whole world thought she had betrayed them. Because some stories don't have easy endings. Some decisions mark you forever. But it's in those moments, when you're walking a tightrope between losing everything and risking everything, that you discover what you're truly made of. And she was discovering that she was made of something stronger than she imagined. If this type of story speaks to you, if narratives about impossible choices, real protection, and feelings born amidst chaos resonate with you, subscribe to Heart of Protection Stories. This channel exists to tell stories that stay with you, that touch something real inside us. And every time you choose to stay, you strengthen this community that we are building together. Comment below. I'm with you until the end, because I want to know if this journey is resonating with you in the same way it resonates with me when I tell my story. And if any part of this story touched you in silence, if you felt the weight of her decisions, his protection, the bond that forms when it shouldn't but forms anyway, leave a like. It's a simple way to show that this matters, that these stories matter. And look, there's a video right here that delves even deeper into this type of choice, this type of protection that costs everything but is worth every second. Just click and continue with me there. The story doesn't end here. It never ends when it's real.